The enlistment of democracy and freedom as ideological war weapons inevitably inspired demands for their expansion at home. In 1916, Wilson had cautiously endorsed votes for women. America's entry into the war threatened to tear the suffrage movement apart, since many advocates had been associated with opposition to American involvement. Indeed, among those who voted against the declaration of war was the first woman member of Congress, the staunch pacifist Jeannette Rankin of Montana. "I want to stand by my country, but I cannot vote for war," she said. Although defeated in her re-election bid in 1918, Rankin would return to Congress in 1940. She became the only member to oppose the declaration of war against Japan in 1941, which ended her political career. In 1968, at the age of 85, Rankin took part in a giant march on Washington to protest the war in Vietnam. As during the Civil War, however, most leaders of women's suffrage organizations enthusiastically enlisted in the war effort. Women sold war bonds, organized patriotic rallies, and went to work in war production jobs. Some 22,000 served as clerical workers and nurses with American forces in Europe. Many believed wartime service would earn them equal rights at home. At the same time, a new generation of college-educated activists, organized in the National Women's Party, pressed for the right to vote with militant tactics many older suffrage advocates found scandalous. The party's leader, Alice Paul, had studied in England between 1907 and 1910, when the British suffrage movement adopted a strategy that included arrests, imprisonments, and vigorous denunciations of a male-dominated political system. "How could the country fight for democracy abroad?" Paul asked, while denying it to women at home. She compared Wilson to the Kaiser, and a group of her followers chained themselves to the White House fence, resulting in a 7-month prison sentence. When they began a hunger strike, the prisoners were force-fed. The combination of women's patriotic service and widespread outrage over the mistreatment of Paul and her fellow prisoners pushed the administration toward full-fledged support for women's suffrage. "We have made partners of the women in this war," Wilson proclaimed. "Shall we admit them only to a partnership of suffering and sacrifice and toil, and not to a partnership of privilege and right?" In 1920, the long struggle ended with the ratification of the 19th Amendment, barring states from using sex as a qualification for the suffrage. The United States became the 27th country to allow women to vote.